With me today is H.D. Jones. He's actually the pastor of my church, and I just told him in the green room before we started actually recording that we're starting at the bottom here on Mike the Baptist, and he's the bottom, and then we're going to go up from there. So, but say hello, H. This is H.D.
Hello to everybody. Thank you for having me on the inaugural program, and it is my job to set the bar pretty low for everybody else.
And I knew you would do a great job at that. Is why I said to come on up. We have one member in our studio audience who's sworn to be silent as much as possible, but it'll come out of him before it's over with. Okay, so let me explain. There's just a couple of rules here on the Mike the Baptist program. The rules are, one, I'm going to ask you some questions, and we're just going to talk a little bit. But I've been thinking about this. You can ask me questions too. So if you have a desire to do that, you can flip the script anytime you want to.
All right.
And we'll see what happens. The only other rule is, you've known me for a long time. I've known you for a long time. And I may not be totally conventional when it comes to how people operate. And I don't for a long time. When I used to teach Sunday school, I'm still in Sunday school. A lot of people are Connect or something now. I'm still in Sunday school. But anyway, when I used to teach that, I had a rule, no churchy answers. I didn't want churchy answers. I wanted people to talk like we talk. So the Mike the Baptist program is all about talking like we talk. And I know you're pretty common. You're common like I am. And
I appreciate that word common.
yeah, so I know you can fall right into this. But in case you slip, and you get a little churchy, you'll get the buzzer.
The panic button.
The panic button. And I can play it on myself too. So, if I get out of line, I may push it on myself. So anyway, welcome to the studio. And first obvious question is, where are you from? See, this was first segment.
Yeah.
So, just picture in your mind that we're sitting on a front porch. We're gonna talk and visit for a little bit before we get serious. So we're just gonna visit. Where are you from?
So I'm from here, Mike the Baptist. Actually, live on my granddad's farm. I'm the third generation, and went to school at Greenbrier, and swore I would never live in Greenbrier.
Greenbrier, Tennessee. Because there's a Greenbrier, Arkansas.
Yes, Greenbrier, Tennessee, and swore I would never live here. And lo and behold, here's where I am.
There you are.
There I am.
So, you grew up on a farm. I know you grew up on a farm. So you've ran your arm up in there in the middle of the night pulling calves out too, haven't you?
I've done that, yes.
Yep.
Tied them onto the car bumper.
Pull them on out of there. Yep.
Yep.
So interesting. A lot of people have not experienced that.
No, they have not.
Yeah.
One of those things maybe wished I didn't experience, but
it sticks with you.
Part of the farm.
Yeah, it sticks with you.
Do what you can.
It does. So let's talk about you growing up a little bit. What'd you do when you were a kid? What did you do in Greenbrier when you were a kid?
Yeah, so went to school and came home, and just traditional small town. We'd play backyard football and goof around and swing off grapevines, and had just kind of a lot of fun. Did scouting. Made it all the way to Eagle Scout. So that was my Monday night, I think, is when we met. That was our routine. Then just normal, get off the bus, go feed the cows, and then have a chance to hang out with friends a little bit, and then do homework and get up and do it all over again. So
I've seen your folks' place. I know where you live. Is that where you grew up? Yep. Right on that farm?
Yep.
Oh, neat. So were all those houses, were there a lot of people around when you were?
Oh, no.
Because where I'm from, you had to go a ways to get to another house there.
No, back when I was probably 7 or 8 years old, I remember my grandparents sitting out on the front porch, and hey, there goes Mr. So-and-so. There goes Miss So-and-so. They knew everybody that went up and down Bethel. It wasn't even paved. I think it was gravel at that point. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's changed a lot.
We had that. I grew up on a highway, and you could sit out on the front porch, and just everybody, and that lived anywhere out in that area, you saw them go by just constantly.
That was back before we even had zip codes. We were like Route 1, Box 109. Didn't have the 911 numbers.
Party line?
Party line.
You had a party line on your
Yep.
phone? Yeah, we did too. I wonder if anybody in our studio audience ever had a party line.
It's not what they're thinking. I'm
No,
honest.
no. They did not have they got a no head shake there. They did not have a party line. So we probably share a pretty real similar growing up. I mean, you had to find things to do. I remember
Yep.
that. You didn't have the video games. You had cartoons on Saturday morning only.
Throwing rocks and walnuts was a real game. I mean, hit a barn, hit a kid,
Hit a car.
hit a monkey, win a cookie.
Yeah. Hit a monkey, win a cookie. We didn't have monkeys where I'm from. You had monkeys?
Well, some of the neighbors.
That's kind of like not even fair if you had monkeys. But so this is Greenbrier, rural Tennessee, and I noticed you've kept a lot of that ruralness in you.
Thank
Which
you.
let me say, just for the record, that's a good thing in my book. I think that's a good thing because it's just a good thing. Helps you see things different, and I think maybe especially nowadays,
Yep.
it's a lot different way to look at things. So you do a good job of remaining simple.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. That is correct. It is what it is. So as you're growing up and you're in a rural area, you're not around a lot of people real close. I've got a point I'm heading to. There's
All
a
right.
reason I'm asking some of these things. Part of it's just front porch visiting. And I said earlier that this is just going to be like you and I in your office sometimes, but actually we can't do all the conversations that we might have had in your office. So we're being kind of selective here. But anyway, so as you're getting older in the country, and you're growing you're becoming a teen and all that. What does a teen do in Greenbrier, Tennessee? I know what we did in northwest Arkansas, but
I mean, you had football games, basketball games, baseball games, and stuff that was going on pretty much with the high school. Then we'd have bottle rocket wars, stealing pumpkins off people's front porch during Halloween.
did you ever shoot a bottle rocket into the pond?
No, I didn't do that.
That's a
Yeah.
lot of, you need to go back and do that
Yeah,
now.
I mean, yeah, I know. That sounds like a lot of fun.
It
No,
is
we
a lot
just,
of fun.
I don't know. We just did a lot of, I would call it stupid guy stuff.
Yeah.
Some of those things you look back and go, I'm surprised none of us got arrested or died.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good for you too, though. I think that stuff's good for you too.
I remember, the warning signs that they put on the side of the road, got the little thing out there with the flashing lights when they're doing road work. Me and some buddies went and stole like 2 or 3 of those and put them on a friend's house that was like the straight laced person. He freaked out and the cops came by and like, where'd you get these? And it's illegal to move them. So yeah, just dumb
Yeah.
stuff like that.
So you never went to jail?
No. I visited, but I never went.
I went a few times, but not. I went because a friend of mine's dad was the county sheriff,
Oh, okay.
so we were in and out of the jail quite often.
Scare tactics.
Sorta. We really had no fear of him, so it was like, when you're around one of those guys at their house a lot, it's like, oh, so nothing special there.
Right.
Sorry, Mark, if you hear this, but I guess I'm wondering when you became a older teenager, did you have one of those times where you kind of drifted off and was kind of testing
Oh yeah.
the wild side?
Yeah. Just, got to that place where I think a lot of people do this as they get older, is just the options are more open to you and that kind of stuff. But I think one of the cool things was I still had that fear, mom and dad instilled that fear in me, like, you represent us, we might show up where you're supposed to be. And
Mhm.
they were the kind of parents that would call the family that I was supposed to be at their house and make sure that I was there and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think that part of the teenage growing up is just venturing out and making your own mistakes too.
Yeah, see what you can get away with.
Yeah.
I was raised by my grandparents, so we probably got away with more than we should.
So
So
I tell kids all the time too. It's like, don't ever go back and tell your parents. So, I don't want to incriminate myself because mom and dad might listen to
they
this.
might hear this, yeah.
But I remember sitting around the table with my wife and her brothers, and they just started laughing about the things that they got into, and like, yeah, remember that time y'all left us with Nanny and she fell asleep and we stole her car and went out and did all this stuff, and their mom started crying like, I just don't want to think about those things. And I tell my kids all the time, at this point you've gotten away with it. I don't want to know.
That's probably healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know some things that I wish I'd never found out. It would have been, yeah, it just would have been better.
You thought you were doing a good job as a cop. And, my kids never snuck out. They never did anything bad. And I did a great job. And then when they start telling you those things, you're like, oh, man.
Really? Well, that happens.
It does.
It happens. I know you went to college because that's where you met your wife, et cetera, et cetera. I've heard you tell that real sappy story many times. Although I will say that for anybody listening, every time he tells a story from the pulpit of our church, I tell everybody I know, you're going to like this guy because in every sermon, there's one redneck comment, at least.
It comes out.
I'm serious.
Again, it comes out.
And I'm glad it does.
That was one of the things I struggled with. Gosh, Mike, when I first surrendered to the call to preach, and then you listen to these great guys like Adrian Rogers.
Surrendered to the call to preach. You have to say that different.
Yeah, okay. So when you get backed into the corner and there's nothing else to do but what he wants you to do.
Okay.
But yeah, you listen to people like Billy Graham, Adrian Rogers, and you're like, I wish I could really sound that smart. And then I would listen to matter of fact, I don't listen to most of my sermons. I probably won't listen to this podcast because I'm just like, matter of fact, I don't even like having these headphones on.
Yes.
It's like, this is ridiculous. I sound like Jeff Foxworthy, like, get saved or you're not going to, it's just like, good gracious, this is crazy. But those things do come back, and you have, at the end of the day, we have to be who we are. You can't be somebody else, and you just have to do it your way.
That's true. But you're getting way ahead of me.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Because don't pound the table either.
I'm
you hear that.
I do now.
It drives me nuts. Okay, but anyway, where were we? All right, we're getting distracted.
Going back to
already.
Knoxville.
Knoxville, you were going to college.
Yep.
So you did the college thing. What did you study? Oh, you're a CPA guy.
Yeah, I went, Mom had her business, and I thought, okay, this would be really, matter of fact, I got elected from my high school. I was the most likely to succeed. Only because my mom had her own business, and they're like, oh, well, you're just take over your mom's business one day.
You're going to be in.
So I decided, I'm going to go to UT Knoxville, and I'm going to study business management. And gosh, probably a year in, one of my accounting teachers was like, you're really good at accounting. Do you like accounting? I'm like, sure. And he's like, no, seriously, you could be in any industry if you know accounting. So I went that route, got that degree.
So what were you studying?
Business management. Yep, I had one accounting class, and the professor really just kind of encouraged me and said, if you like this, he said, I would make it more specific. That's what we did.
So somebody singled you out and pointed you that way.
Yep.
Huh.
Yep.
Interesting.
Had really no clue what I was doing, just you get a degree.
Yeah. Well, who does at that age?
Right.
I really don't think anybody does.
Yeah.
I just don't think. HD's mother, by the way, there was this jingle, I think, when I moved to Tennessee. Would that have been playing in 91?
Oh,
that's when I moved. And
absolutely.
Call Jane
Pick
Jones.
Up the phone and call Jane Jones. And
yeah.
it was the corniest, sappiest country music sounding.
And you heard it every 2 minutes.
And bless her heart, she did a great job. She was one of the first small business women owner groups. Mm-hmm. She got in with Jerry House in 98 here in Nashville. And they loved her. And she got a lot of free press. I mean, you'd turn on the radio and they'd play that silly jingle.
Yep.
And Paul Randall and Jerry House would just go crazy. And if something was going on in Nashville, they'd be like, well, the governor can't figure this out. Call Jane Jones, see if she can get you a temp. I mean, it was all the time. It was really kind of cool. But at the time, again, being a teenager and people walking up and down the hall of the high school and singing the song to you, and you just wanted to throat punch them,
Yep.
So yep, that's part of it.
Kind of like being born with a name like Michael Jackson.
Right.
Yeah. There's no rest. Yeah. So that was, I can remember hearing that jingle, and then I didn't know that for a long time. When y'all were coming around, I didn't put all that together. I might have heard a reference or two about that, but I never really put it together. And then I'm going like, oh yeah, yep. So that explains why you were looking for anything to do
other than that. Exactly.
That's kind of interesting. So this is a front porch visit. We've just been seeing how you got where you are here, where you came from. And we need to golf. You hadn't golfed in a long time, have you?
I know, right?
You're working too much.
I know. Somebody asked me, we've just hired this new executive pastor, and
yeah.
Of course, it seemed like the job description was whatever HD wants him to do, and I think that irritates some people. But somebody came up to me, they're like, now that you're getting all this help, what are you going to do? I was like, I think I'm just going to start playing a lot of golf.
That's what I was going to say. What's his first name, the new guy?
Michael.
Michael. I'd say, hey, Michael, give me a tee time.
Yeah.
Please? Thanks.
Please. Yeah, exactly.
Thanks.
Please and thank you, always implied.
Yeah. So we're going to break away here for a minute. I'm going to put a little pause here.
All right.
And something will be in that pause later on. We won't hear anything now. But by the magic of technology later, something will appear there. And then we're going to come back, and I'm going to explain to people how I was in the room when you were born.
That should be interesting.
Yeah. We'll be right back. We're just Christians trying not to cuss.
This land is your land is my land.
Slap some bacon on a biscuit and let's go. We're burning daylight.
If you like a little meat with your vegetables, then you might like our sister podcast, Our Land with Michael Jackson. It's a podcast for freedom-loving, liberty-chasing, common-sensed Christian Americans who still believe that good can and will prevail in the struggle to survive in today's crazy society. It's a little bit politics, a little bit social commentary, and a whole lot not woke. Just search for Our Land with Michael Jackson on your favorite podcast app, or you can subscribe to get the podcast and read our posts at ourland.substack.com. Our Land is a member of Our Land Media Group, the America in the Middle.
This land was made for you and me.
We're back with my buddy H.D. Jones from Greenbrier, not Arkansas, Tennessee, but it's still the country.
It's still the country.
You know, a lot of people are not aware of this, but I was there when you were born.
Yeah, I was wondering about that myself.
Yep, I was in the room. Well, no. Let me take that back. I may not have been in the room, but I was close to delivery.
All right.
So anyway, okay. So you came to the church I go to, and you were an education guy because you knew how to give. Though your business at that time was giving, what was it, seminars or training? Training.
The trainings, yeah.
So you were schooled in training and all that. So you show up at our church, and here's this CPA-minded guy. He was a redneck, but he was CPA-minded, so right. he was a well-behaved redneck, and he knew how to BS his way through. So he showed up, and he immediately got put to work in what do they call it now? What was it used to call discipleship training?
Oh yeah, discipleship.
Was that the word?
That was it.
I didn't buzz that because discipleship training, that phrase is nowhere in the Bible that I've seen. Anyway, so you were pulled into that role there at our church, and for a long time you were like the education guy. But then I don't remember how it happened. Maybe you do. How did it happen? Is it that they once in a while they were gonna like I don't know, go see their family out of state, the other preacher, and they would ask you to fill in? Is that how that started? And you?
Yeah, they would give me an opportunity to do stuff, especially Wednesday night and Sunday nights. I was doing classes and that kind of stuff.
kind of like the vice president. You send them, where they're not going to be seen a whole lot,
Exactly.
and just kind of to see how they do.
Put them in a smaller group. If it makes them mad, it'll be okay.
But so anyway, you did that a while, but then you were doing the fill-in, but then it seemed like your mindset started changing a little bit. But if I recall this correctly, you fought it.
Oh, absolutely.
Like a cat in a paper bag. You
Absolutely.
were like, I ain't doing that.
Absolutely.
I ain't going to become one of those.
I had my plan, which I thought was a good plan, make money over here.
Right.
Therefore, remain independent to do what you want to do in church as opposed to being owned by the church and being told what to do.
Right.
So I thought that was a great plan. I saw myself, hey, I didn't mind the part-time gig and I didn't mind teaching and doing that stuff, but
yep.
I could push the envelope a little bit and not worry that, my whole retirement package is gone because they don't like something.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So you were straddling the fence, basically.
Absolutely.
Because I remember at that time you were driving a Lincoln.
Absolutely.
Which to me is like, if you're a preacher and you're driving a Lincoln, you just got to feel guilty all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not a preacher and I've got a Lincoln. I don't feel guilty at all.
Most of your churches want their pastors to be
for
benevolence. Yep. We need to be on the benevolence committee.
You need to be needy and you need us.
Yep. Please live in our parsonage and we're going to pay you just enough money to keep you from starving, but you'll never make it any further.
So then the Rebel Jones shows up.
Right.
And because I remember talking to you back during those times a little bit here and there, and you were like, you're kind of, it was coming, it was developing in your mind. This is why I say I was there when you were born.
Right.
Because I remember watching you go through this, and it was, to be honest with you, it was kind of entertaining. I was trying to be helpful and serious when I was visiting with you, but when I was leaving, I was going like, dude, this guy's, he's twisted up like a pretzel.
I'm glad you were enjoying those moments. Those were drives to Nashville, just wrestling. Yeah. You're going to bust me if I say wrestling with God?
Well, I'm thinking you got to be careful. If you say wrestling with God, I will.
Okay.
Matter of fact, because you did say it, so just rephrase it.
I was struggling. I really was struggling.
Yeah.
Because I had my plan. And I thought it was a pretty good plan.
Well, it's because you're like my friend Keith, who I talked to yesterday about, is a planner, by the book.
Yep.
Got the notes, checklist, all this stuff. That's how you were too.
Yeah. Well, and again, background of being in mom's business and knowing accounting, knowing numbers, and even having my own business again, and enjoyed a lot of part of that. Enjoyed my customers, enjoyed my employees. It was just, there was that struggle there. Mm-hmm. There was that struggle. And, got to the place where, to be honest, I was just kind of miserable in some of it.
I remember that. Yep. You were, but now the real misery, I don't think the real misery started with you that I saw until the conversation came up about becoming the
that was
pastor of the whole church, because that was also an entertaining time to watch you because I remember in those days you were a little impatient because when you had something on your mind you were used to getting it done,
ready to go,
as opposed to me. It's like I don't have to watch a ball game because the scores are going to be on the radio tomorrow. So I don't,
You've been planning this podcast for 30 years.
I've been planning this for 30 years.
Finally have the inaugural session.
It happened. It's a crazy circle that
right?
things take. But yeah, so I remember having lunch with you one time, and it's when I think you were an education guy, but you were making the transition in your mind of becoming a preacher guy.
Oh, I was. Yeah, absolutely. When our pastor left, I was still comfortable going, hey, you know what? I'll preach one Sunday and the youth guy can preach one Sunday and we'll just do that. And I remember telling the search committee, y'all need to go do your work because surely it's not me. Go find your guy. And I'm cool helping you fill the gap. And I'm good being behind the scenes. And I remember, some of you clowns going, what's it going to take? What's it going to take? And I'm like, I don't know. Because it really wasn't a money issue. It was really that commitment issue.
Yeah. Well, it was, it seemed like just in observing you that it was a commitment of leaving behind
Oh yeah.
what you really knew in your head and had been so used to,
Yep.
and heading off into the wild west here of,
Yep.
whatever it is that preachers go through,
You know, right?
which is it's akin to something different. So
There's a lot of there's a lot of flexibility in the job. There's a lot of good things, but there's a lot of stress. You know, I remember looking at my wife and some friends one time, and I was like, this is too much. It's too much, because you literally have a bunch of people evaluating your job that really don't understand it. All they understand is whether they like the end product. But there's a whole lot more to pastoring than just what happens on a 30-minute sermon on Sunday morning.
well, it's like, I know one thing about it. It's like, I used to come down there all the time, and then I took a short break, and it lasted for a few years now, but I used to come down there all the time, but I got,
This is why I don't play golf. You never come ask me anymore.
okay, well, game on. I see. If that's the reason, you're fit to see me.
You must have gotten better.
Yeah, you fit.
And you know I haven't gotten any better.
No, because you've got that Kevlar,
I know that's
little Kevlar metal wood thing
That's
that you
awesome.
you just pick it down the middle.
Yep.
And that's of course that's how you're supposed to play golf. So I guess that's why you use that. But yeah, I'll come back. I need to come back down around anyway, because there's a new secretary there that I have not confused yet. So
you can have a lot of fun.
I'm going to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've already got plans.
Yeah.
So, and they're good ones. You'll be really happy. They're really good. Okay, so anyway, long story short, you became a preacher, and then the way things unfolded there over a few years, you became the pastor of the church I go to.
Yep.
And
you told me I was good for about 7 years.
yeah, I told you at that time that in deacons meetings around that church that every 7 years, pretty well, a pastor flipped, you know. And actually, the statistics nationwide, I think that was kind of the average at that time, 7 years. So yeah, I was really watching you there. But now it's been 15, 20. Well, how many years has it been?
Since 08.
14 years. Wow. So you've doubled that 7. Well, you're still riding a fine line there. So
I know, right?
Just be careful.
One deacon's meeting away from being unemployed.
So one of the reasons I was really happy about starting out with you on this program is not necessarily because I'm starting at the bottom. That's just a funny thing to say. But you are free. You didn't charge me to come do it, and you're local.
Right.
And your wife's doing something else tonight.
Yeah,
so
she's
it's
out
like
of town.
everything lined up, and it worked. So one reason I was real tickled about having you in here is because you're about as unconventional a preacher as I've ever known. Now, I will say that as you are growing in your role, you're getting a little more serious than I'm comfortable with, but you're still pretty common. So people call you HD, they don't call you. A few of the old timers call you pastor.
Oh, that was a hard thing too. I mean,
Yeah.
even in the resistance of what's it going to take for you to be our pastor. And I remember looking at this group of guys and going, take it to a church vote, because I'm sitting there going, sure, it'll be like 50-50 or something, you know. And so when the church vote came back and it was like, well, you got 2 no votes, and I think that was Susan and myself. Then it was like the surreal of, you know, what do we call you? And that just really was like, you just call me HD, you know. And some of the older folks, no, we need to call you Pastor Jones. We need to show you respect. And, well, over the last 14 years, that's gone away. The respect. Just it's nosedive.
Few people still say pastor, but it's in passing.
Exactly.
They're making a joke or something. But no, look, in all sincerity, I like that about you because, you know, I think I may have told you early on that I had kind of watched a couple of preacher type people. I don't know. I had watched a couple of them maybe get a little sidetracked with adoration and that sort of thing.
Yep.
And I think I may have said something to you. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, you were keeping me humble.
Yeah, I was thinking I might have mentioned to you that I'm going to kind of watch you, and if your ego starts getting outside of your body, that I was going to
Let me know.
check you.
Yep.
And it doesn't appear to have really. I mean, there's a few times, you got a little,
Yeah.
but you get involved in the job. I understand. You get involved in the job, and you have to do.
Well, the hard part about church is, and I tell
Let me just say this.
Yeah.
One thing I'm really proud.
What's that?
You've never cussed from the pulpit. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud.
Some words have jumped in my head. Thank goodness I have. Thank goodness
Okay, I'm sorry.
I've held them back. But part of the hard part in the job is that, and I've said this to several people, I'm not smarter than everybody else up there. I just spend a whole lot more time up there. And so it's really difficult sometimes not to just go, just shut up and trust me and let's roll. It really is. It's just like, we got to go to this committee and then go to this committee. And it's all good stuff. And you need that accountability, but sometimes it can be frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say too, our church has been really, really good. I talked to some other friends of mine, and I don't know that I could survive in those environments.
Yeah, I will say. I mean, I guess everybody's church that they go to, they're proud of, but ours especially. There's a real family kind of common sense. Nobody down there seems overly proud of themselves, and everybody's quite willing to laugh at themselves, and most everybody down there has a reason to chuckle at themselves from time to time.
I mean, I've got buddies who've told me just can't make $100 decision to buy snacks for the children's department without getting 10 people to sign off on it or questioned if they did it. And I'm like, wow, I would struggle in that, So, so our church has been pretty good about giving some freedoms, but then there's accountability too.
So let me ask you this. I also know about you that you are not a particularly compassionate human being.
I'm very compassionate.
I recall being at your house one time for I think it was Domino's or something, and one or two of your kids was at the table, and when they were taking turns going around and get to one of your kids, you were immediately over their shoulder going, "Hurry up! What are you waiting on?
Let's go.
Play!" It was just hilarious to watch that. But so, have you always been that way? Is that how you are? It seems like that's just you. And I'm saying this because I'm glad.
Yeah.
You should just be you. You should.
My buddy, Mr. Gene, goes, "You're lacking in a little bit of grace."
Now, that's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
That would never get buzzed right there.
You're lacking in a little bit of grace. And yeah, probably am sometime.
But you know what? That's kept you one of everybody else.
And I think my wife would tell you this. I think I've changed and become more compassionate. It's really weird, Michael. It's some stuff I'm not compassionate about, like dumb stuff.
Yeah.
Like it just irritates me. Make a decision and move on.
Yeah.
But then some guy can walk in and go, "Hey man, I'm hooked on drugs and I'm doing porn. I'm thinking about leaving my wife." To that guy, I'm very compassionate. I walk with them through that, and I'm not judgmental and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's the
nonsense.
We didn't play enough hymns in church today that I just want to go crazy on people on that kind of stuff.
Oh, this is going to be fun when a few people hear this.
Yeah.
Locally, they're going to say, "There he is,
There he
talking
is.
about the songs again."
I know, man, but it's just
stepping on those toes.
It's crazy how Christian people get so out of whack with a form of worship instead of the substance.
That is true. It is kind of wacky. Just remember, I have a buzzer over here, so the rule is no churchy.
I know.
But no, you're doing a good job. You're keeping it dumbed down pretty good so
But
far.
I mean, you think about we just, and again, I think our church is pretty good at being flexible. We just ripped the pews out of the sanctuary. I mean, literally,
all of them.
I mean, really, literally, guys going with a saw, ripping them in half. There was no weeping and gnashing of teeth and all that. But the big concern is, where are we going to put our juice cups? And I'm just like, we'll figure it out. It'll be okay.
By the way, those new chairs are kind of a white, gray, light gray cloth. I suggest that we move to the white grape juice instead of that deep burgundy stuff. I'm just saying. Somebody else, I told that somebody, and they said, well, they're stain proof. I said, they ain't that stain proof.
Yeah, right.
You know, grape juice can stain a lot of things. You know, grape juice can stain a grape. So,
good point.
Think about that for a while.
Let that roll around.
So we've established that you grew up a poor. Now I had heard at some point that you used to be black.
Probably. You've seen me dance.
That's what it was. No, I'm just kidding. I just like to throw that out there just to see what kind of reaction I get. But anyway, so you grew up in the country. You did the normal thing most people do, and then you become a preacher. So we've established that. Got to that. So we're probably going to take a little bit of a breather here, and then come back and. I've discovered a scripture. I was talking to some friends of mine last night about this scripture I've been hearing forever, but the other morning in my I don't like to use phrases like quiet time or Bible study or what have you, because I read the Bible sometimes in places you don't, you wouldn't want to call it study anyway. But I recently came across this scripture and I read it, and there's something in it that I had not really paid attention to before. And it was a good conversation with these friends of mine about it. I want to bring it up to you, an actual preacher. One thing about the program here, I don't have it ready yet, but I'll have you back later.
Okay.
When I get it developed correctly, I will have a BS alarm. So that if we start talking about some scripture and we're not really sure if that was in scripture or if that's just people say that, then a BS alarm will go off. Okay. But now, before you get carried away, that stands for Bible scholar.
Okay.
So we'll call an actual Bible scholar to look that up for us. And
phone a friend.
Yeah, but it'll be a BS alarm.
Okay.
So anyway, that's coming in the future. So we'll be back shortly with our guest, H.D. Jones. Hey, we're back. We took a break and we came back. We rested up because we're going into, I don't want to say serious mode. This is just a conversation, right?
Yep.
And remember the rule, no churchy answers.
No churchy answers.
Yeah. Or, dodge it as much as you can.
Gotcha.
Because you know what, I've noticed that when you're inside a church, people talk different than they do when they're outside a church. Have you noticed that?
Don't you love pastors? I used to have this guy. He was a great man, but I mean, you could ask him, "Hey, did you wash your car today?" And be like, "Bless God."
Yeah.
He gave me the sunshine and the water, and bless God. And I'm like, dude, just say yes. I washed my car. Yeah. So yeah, call it churchy talk. Yeah.
Full disclosure, we mean no disrespect, you or I, either one.
No.
We're just common that way.
Well, yeah.
And that's fine. We're building a whole program around that right here. So, and like you're right here at the beginning.
Right.
Hey, listen, I came across this scripture, I was telling you about before the little break there. Remind me to ask you about politics before you get going, because I know you don't want to talk about politics.
Gotcha.
So naturally.
That's what you want to talk about?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But listen, let's talk about that first. I think a lot of people, maybe nowadays Christian people, don't know what to do about the state of affairs in our country and right now around the world, about how they should be involved or not. What's your take on that? I know you don't like, to get in the middle of any of that, but I'm not asking you to get in the middle. But what's your take on it?
No, I think Christian people need to get involved, and the reality is our whole world is in upheaval, and people can't laugh at themselves anymore. I mean, if somebody wants to make a joke because I'm country or white or redneck, I mean, we've gotten to the place where we can't laugh at ourselves, and we've also gotten to the place that we can't agree to disagree with somebody and not want to just run over them or call them some terrible names and stuff. And so I think Christians need to get involved in politics, but not necessarily to walk in and go, here, let me read the Bible to you, but to just give some common sense answers to some of the things that are going on out there.
Great answer. That's absolutely a great answer. Along that line, it seems to me that the country we live in was founded around
absolutely
principles that were like, really heavily based in concepts that came right out of the Bible about how to be.
There's a theological background to all of our organizational documents as a nation, but even in that, it was not intended to overlord that on people, because they had that in England. They had a national religion, and they didn't want people to be forced into that. What's happened is that the liberties that we're willing to give people that believe differently than we believe, it's now being turned on us that everybody else can believe whatever the Sam Hill they want to, but we can't. And if we believe something, then we're the enemy of everybody else, even though we're the ones that have given them that inalienable right to have their own thoughts.
That's pretty good. You should talk about politics more.
There you go.
So let me ask you a question here. Jesus. No, I'm not going to buzz Jesus. You come over and buzz Jesus. If I say Holy Spirit, I ain't touching that buzzer either. You can if you want.
You're good.
Well, depending on how you say it.
Right.
But if I read it and understand it right, Jesus went into a temple one time. Turned some tables over.
Yep.
He did not. So I've often thought that Christian people believe they have like 30 cheeks because, well, you have to turn the other cheek.
Right.
But you've only got 2 of those. When you get slapped in the cheek 3 or 4 times on one side, it gets really raw.
There's some things that we should be absolutely ticked off about.
I agree.
But there's some right ways and some wrong ways to do that.
I agree.
The other thing that you see with Jesus is that he was not a political person per se.
Mm.
Let's look at another political situation. When he goes through Samaria and meets the woman at the well, she was blown away, knew he was Jewish, blown away that he would talk to her in public. One guy's talking about, he said, what had been a stigma and a battle for 800 years, Jesus changed in a few moments because he was willing to put his lips on her cup.
Hmm.
So he didn't walk in and just start going, hey, let me share the gospel with you. He walked in and said, let me get to know you as a person.
Right. Always working on the inside of somebody.
Always working to love on the person to earn the right to share truth.
So your average Christian person, the flock, I guess we call it the flock. Your average Christian person in a church, I think, is confused nowadays about what they should be saying or doing in the world they live in, and it's almost like the opposing viewpoints of the Christian sense that you're bleeding a little bit and you're afraid to fight back, and then they just pour it on even more. That's what I see happening all around us, is that we don't bow up, as we say in the country, to a lot of the nonsense going on, like the dude that started swimming on the girls' swimming team.
Yeah, how silly is this?
Why did they not bow up on that immediately? Right. At what point in the very first meeting about that did somebody with some common sense sitting there looking at that with their eyes squinted and their eyebrows down? Why did they not stand up and say, "That's a dude. You can't do that"?
Because there's no common sense anymore. It's not very common anymore to have common sense.
It's not, but I actually believe, there's a lot more common sense than there is not common sense. But the common sense, they're not putting on any boxing gloves here,
Right.
or even maybe not boxing gloves. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not. Well, yeah, because it is a fight. And it drives me nuts watching friends of mine, family of mine, being mowed over by some of this nonsense in the world today, just because the purveyors of the nonsense recognize they can just bulldoze right over you and just keep going because they don't think you're going to do anything. Am I wrong to think that Christian people need to start doing something?
Oh,
and,
no,
now,
they need to.
and I'm not saying bear arms.
Right, right.
However, I firmly believe there's coming a point if they keep pushing, there's only so much people can take before they do something about it.
You think how far we've come from, yes, we are a land of free speech, but it's illegal to walk into a place and yell fire. It's illegal to do that.
Yeah.
But it's not illegal. This blows my mind. It's not illegal to put on the internet how to make a device to blow up a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Why can't our government say that is ludicrous? We're not going to teach people how to hurt other people. Take that garbage off the internet. Take child pornography off the internet. Why can they not? They hide behind the right of freedom of speech. And yet, again, if the church stands up and says, well, this action we believe is wrong, or that action, oh, that's hate speech, you can't do that.
Yeah, it's upside down.
It just makes no sense at all.
So you're agreeing with me that we need to be a little more vocal.
The crap out of me, by the way.
It does me too a little bit, but
we just need to stand up for, and again, it's not about politics to me, but just to stand up for what is right.
Exactly, but it is my firm belief that this whole conversation. I know this is a different program. I'll have to have you come back on our land and just talk politics, because this is a good political conversation that needs to be had, I think, about Christian involvement. But the Christian person lives their life by a set of standards that they glean from these scriptures and from being around others and seeing how it works in people's lives. And what happens is, seems to me, with a Christian person, is you change on the inside, and everything you do,
right,
as you're changing, is affected on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
So it's my belief that when it comes to being involved in politics and what have you, that a lot of Christians kind of miss the boat because they're thinking to be involved in politics, they have to go make big political arguments. And I don't think that's true, because a lot of the politicians still have a Christian foundation, and you can see that when they're making decisions and they're talking, that those things inside of them are affecting what they do. But there are a lot that don't have that too. And to me, that's what needs to change.
Well, we have forgotten how to argue intelligently without just trying to throw a bunch of scriptures at people to make it look like we're trying to be more godly than everybody else. Well, let's just be honest. Thou shalt not murder sounds like a pretty good idea. But I could also be a proponent for, hey, if you're a drunk driver and you kill somebody, there's a penalty for that. I don't have to go back and go, the Lord says thou shalt not. I can just go, you know what? You're right. From my internal beliefs, I can help set policies and procedure that would be in agreement with what I believe, but I don't have to be overtly religious about it.
You don't have to be a Bible thumper.
You don't have to be a Bible thumper.
Because that just runs people off.
Again, Jesus meeting the woman at the well, it broke a lot of stereotypes. It broke a lot of what was norm for the day, but he didn't do it with some religious rule in the back of his head. Mm-hmm. He did it because he had a love for that woman.
It was inside of him because of...
And he did the right thing, and then, it turned into a conversation that was more religious, but that was down the road a little bit. And I think we need some godly men and women on school boards,
Yes.
not to get in there and say every school has to have prayer to Yahweh before the day starts, but just to fight for some fairness.
Yahweh's a little over the line.
Okay.
Aren't you supposed to dispel that?
You're not gonna beat Jesus or the Holy Spirit, but you're gonna beat
Yahweh.
the name of God. Wow.
Okay, I missed the boat on that one a little bit. This one's just for me.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome.
That's my penance. Okay, so Christian people do need to get a little more involved and be vocal, especially right now, and not in the crazy Bible thumping way, but in a way that, yeah, common sense. Common sense is the phrase I keep coming back to. Interesting. Let me tell you about this scripture I came across.
All right.
I think it's James. Was it James where James is saying in the scripture, don't just be a hearer? Was that in James?
Yep.
Seems like it was. He says, don't just be a hearer. Be a doer. But there's a couple of words right after doer. You know what they are? Be a doer who acts. So I read that recently and I'm thinking, I never noticed that before. I've always just heard in the church, lingo and the classes and the preachers, and they just say, you be a doer. And I'm thinking, but he wrote there, be a doer who acts. We might have to have a BS alarm, see if it's who acts or that acts or what, but that's another episode. But so I got to thinking about that, and I came up, here's what I came up with. Tell me your take on this, but I'm thinking there had to be a reason for the extra that acts, because doer, acts, isn't that the same? I don't think it is, because it seems to me like maybe the doer is the people that, all of us, the do's and the don'ts of Christianity. We live our life, and when we get serious about this, we're trying to do the things that the Bible teaches us to do and not do the things that it teaches us not to do. But the act, to me, seems like it's the things that are outside of the do's and don'ts. It's the things that you are instigating on your own, to react completely on your own to what you've learned or what you're being, I'm trying not to use churchy words here, prompted to do. Or somebody said yesterday, talking about this lead, and I just came unglued. I mean, it was like, no. But you know what I'm saying?
But you're being guided, you're being directed that way.
So tell me your take on this. Had you noticed that before?
It's just
I know you've read it before, but
in the remainder of that verse, he says, so that you don't fool yourself, so that it's a reality of this relationship that we have with Christ changes us. And it's not just about being a rule keeper. It's about, like you said, putting myself in good situations, because I know that I still have the propensity to fall and fail. I say all the time, you need to make sure that you're not putting yourself in harm's way as much as you can.
So that would be acting too, to not
absolutely
put yourself in a situation.
Absolutely. To the alcoholic, don't have alcohol in your house, because you're gonna have a bad day. To men who struggle with the lust of the eyes, why do you have Cinemax and Showtime and all that? Maybe, just maybe, the action you need to take is, I'm just going to cancel those subscriptions because I don't want to go there again. And so the action part of it is putting those things up to help you do better. You may not be struggling in that moment, but you're preparing yourself because you are going to struggle.
Good explanation. I found it fascinating.
Yeah.
You should turn that into a sermon someday.
Happens to be my series for the whole year, right?
Yeah, and I was going to have the cops
Thanks.
music here, but
Thanks for the plug.
I didn't get it here in time. But, your series for the whole year is what? Acts?
Be doers of the word and not hearers.
Say I'm not paying attention. Well, wait a minute. Is that true?
It is.
I'm not paying good attention.
is.
So, okay, well, there's a free extra sermon
There
on
you
the
go.
Acts part.
There you go.
Because I think you'll catch a lot of people off guard, like myself, who have heard that scripture over and over and over and over, but I never actually read that part. Who acts? And it was confusing at first, but then having plenty of time, since I don't have a real job or anything to sit around and think about things, I got to thinking about that, and I thought, you know what, I really think that's the extra you go to.
What did the posse you had last night? What was their wisdom?
I don't know that there was a lot of wisdom. There's a lot of talk. We have one of them in the studio audience. Studio audience, is that kind of what we talked about previously? We kind of just expounded on what the act would be, and I think we determined too that's the extra you go to apply what you're learning.
We never talked about that's not what we don't do.
Yeah, that's an extra.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good. This is compounding, building on itself. That's really good. So, yeah, I like that. So,
Well, so much of what we know we're supposed to be is obedient. So, what is obedience, and how do you do that?
yep, we went through that last episode too. The word obedient, I got a problem with that. So let's call it. Explain it different. Explain it Greenbrier ease.
Yes, doing what you're supposed to do, and not doing what you're
Okay.
not supposed to do.
And I appreciate that you said "supposed."
Supposed. See?
It's perfect.
Ewins is welcome.
That's perfect. All right. So, I think we gleaned something from this conversation. I like it. It's been good. I'm glad to have you here. I'm not going to keep you all night. I am going to have you back on our land if you'll come join me at some time on that program.
Talk more politics.
We'll just talk straight up politics. We'll really get in the weeds, because I can get in the weeds on that one. I got one question though before we go to a little break and then come back to end this thing. I know you're not a real compassionate and emotional guy. I share this with you sometimes. Those traits. What are you compassionate about? A non-churchy answer. I mean, what are you passionate about? What do you really care about in people? I mean, if you had to help somebody that you really that you really feel, me, it's like kids mistreated. It just drives me nuts.
Yeah. I hate to see marriages struggle. I really hate to watch, because the answers are usually so simple, but it's become such a matzo ball,
Mhm.
And that really tried to walk with some people in some of those things, and it doesn't always turn out right, and that's okay. I try to tell people, hey, I'm telling these as your friend, sometimes as your pastor, but I want them to know at the end, regardless of if it works out the way I think it should, that I still love that person. But yeah, real compassionate to those people, because there's a lot of brokenness.
There's a bunch.
Oh my gosh.
There's a bunch.
There's a lot of, and it's more, there's more to it than just loneliness and that. I mean, there's just so much to that.
Well, everybody's a different human.
And
it's
I know this may sound not churchy, but even to those who do what I think the scriptures teach and is the right thing, doesn't always mean it's a happy thing, and doesn't always mean it's the most fulfilling thing.
Mhm.
I've got a buddy right now who he has a wife that's had 89 surgeries. She has no legs, and that's been hard for him to walk through that with her. I know this guy, and he's even confided, into me, and I don't think he's sharing it because I hadn't named him, but he's like, she can't be a wife in a lot of ways. She can't, and so it's not always as cut and dry as we like to make it. Do all the right things and it'll just work out. I mean, when you're dealing with two broken people in a broken marriage, it's hard. Yeah.
I've been around 61 years. I'm yet to see any perfect people.
Yep.
Hadn't seen them.
Nope.
You and I aren't either.
Oh, no, long way from it.
Yep. Long way. We're going to take a break and come back. Still Christians trying not to cuss.
This land is your land is my land.
Slap some bacon on a biscuit and let's go. We're burning daylight.
If you like a little meat with your vegetables, then you might like our sister podcast, Our Land with Michael Jackson. It's a podcast for freedom-loving, liberty-chasing, common-sensed Christian Americans who still believe that good can and will prevail in the struggle to survive in today's crazy society. It's a little bit politics, a little bit social commentary, and a whole lot not woke. Just search for Our Land with Michael Jackson on your favorite podcast app, or you can subscribe to get the podcast and read our posts at ourland.substack.com. Our Land is a member of Our Land Media Group, the America in the Middle.
This land was made for you and me.
We're back. My thanks to you, my old friend H.D. Jones.
Thanks for having me.
With the Carhartt shirt on. And it's been fun. Been a good conversation. I always like talking to you anyway. And this kind of setting kept us restrained a little bit because some of those have really gone off the rails before, but that's okay too. We're just real people. So this is not a churchy program. I don't want it to be a churchy program.
Yeah, you call it Mike the Baptist?
Well, I call it Mike the Baptist. So there's a joke about, you know why it's called Mike the Baptist?
Why?
You met my friend Rick from Arkansas.
Yes.
He's the Pentecostal guy.
The Zoo Church.
Yeah. No, that's Rick Montgomery.
That's right.
This is Rick Watts.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
The one I offended.
That's right. But that's a whole different story. But nobody thought another thing about that. It's just funny now. But he and his mother for years have called me Mike the Baptist. Because, we have these conversations about religion and things, and they're Pentecostal, I'm Baptist, so it's just funny.
Gotcha.
So I've told him for a long time, I'm gonna make a radio shirt, something one of these days called Mike the Baptist. Well, here we are.
We go.
Yeah. Thanks, Rick. I gotta say, for talking with a preacher, I use this buzzer very, very little.
It really made me nervous. I was trying to make sure I didn't get buzzed.
Well, it did its trick. So the only thing we are going to do that's kind of like church is we're going to do a hymn here to close it out. If you're listening at home and you've got one of the old Baptist hymnals or any hymnal, it's probably 243 number or something like that. But anyway, I've printed it out for the guest and the studio audience here. Here, you need to do this because you're part of the choir. So we'll close it out with this hymn, and then we'll go on along our merry way and see what kind of flack we get from. This is why I asked you the question I asked you earlier.
Yeah,
today.
Thanks.
I'll start off and y'all just join in. 'Cause you can't starve us out and you can't make us run. 'Cause we're them old boys raised on shotguns. We say grace, we say ma'am. If you ain't into that, we don't really care. We edited that a little bit. We're from North Carolina and South Alabama and little towns all around this land. We can skin a buck, we can run a trot line, and a country boy can survive. Country folks can survive. I can't get that high. A country boy can survive. Country folks can survive. Amen.
That'll be on the top 100 list
of something. Thanks, H.
All right, man. Thank you.
Mike, the Baptist.